This episode brought to you by Sitting in the Sunshine. When the birds are chirping and the sun has just risen, or maybe it's risen a few hours ago because you wake up late, but still it's morning to you, well, either way, get out on your deck or front porch or in your car or wherever you like sitting in the sunshine and try it today. And who knows, if you sit in the sunshine long enough, you may start sweating in the sunshine, and you may even get a tan, which is culturally considered beautiful at the moment. So try it today, sitting in the sunshine. And it may just be for you. And of course, use the promo code Hannah the Human to think of Hannah while you sit in the sunshine.
Let's hit that theme song. Oh, nice. We're going for like existential vibes. Hannah. Hannah the Human.
Guys, I'm going to tell you a story. Once upon a time, it's a fairy tale type of story. Once upon a time, there was a young prince, and he got lost in the woods. He was out hunting, and he chased down a deer, and then looked up, and the deer was gone, and so was the rest of his hunting party. He didn't know where to go. He didn't know what to do. His horse and he were very thirsty, because he had a horse, by the way. He was riding the horse, but then he got off the horse and was walking with the horse because the horse was so tired because they hadn't drunk any water for close to a day. They napped a little bit in the shade of a tree in the middle of a forest, and then, despairing, the prince decided to get up and try one last time to look for his way out of this wood. When he got up, he noticed a little bird, kind of like a goldfinch. It was like a gold-colored little bird. And he thought, wow, I haven't seen any other ones of those. And he said, little bird, where should I go? The little bird looked at him like it didn't understand him, because it probably didn't. And then it flew off. He noticed it flew to a tree a few hundred yards away, and it started singing. It was the most beautiful song, but maybe he was just dreaming because of all the exhaustion and dehydration. Either way, he walked over to the tree with the little bird and looked up and said to it again, will you help me? The little bird once again looked down at him like it didn't understand English, because it probably didn't. By the way, the prince was speaking English, the same language I'm speaking to you right now. And then the bird flew off another 100 yards to another tree. And you guessed it, the prince followed it that way. Soon, he looked around, and he couldn't see the bird, nor could he see his horse. He had forgotten, in his dehydrated stupor, to bring his horse along with him. So now, the bird had flown off, his horse was gone, and he was all alone in the forest. But then he heard a noise, like the sound of was that a waterfall? And so he turned to his left, where he heard the noise, pushed through some bushes, and suddenly tumbled down a little ravine, like about 10 feet deep. Once he stood up from tumbling down into the ravine, he saw before him, yes, indeed, a waterfall. It was a waterfall and a fountain at the same time. It looked like it was spraying up water, but also water coming down. And he rushed over to it and threw his face into the beautiful, crystal clear water and drank deeply and felt so restored. Once he had taken a deep breath, after getting all the water he needed, he suddenly remembered his horse. His horse was somewhere way back there, wherever there was where he had come from. And he must get the water to the horse. So he looked around at the ravine and tried to remember how it looked like. And then he remembered, okay, I rolled down there. So he walked up the ravine. It was easy to see where he'd rolled down. All the, leaves and things were matted down and torn. And then he remembered, okay, there was a tree with the little bird on it. And so he thought, I think this is the tree. And he grabbed a stick and kind of made some markings and kind of set up a little stick design by the tree. So hopefully he would remember it. And then he thought, wait, there was another tree. And he went in the direction of the other tree that he thought he had went to get to this fountain. And he kept doing that and soon realized, I think I'm lost again. But then, that's my best impression of a horse. Then his horse came running towards him. And he said, oh, follow me this way, follow me this way. I found water. So he turned about and tried to find all the trees that he marked along his way. But he couldn't find them. Somehow the markings were gone. However, then, in the distance, that's my impression of a hunting horn, he heard a horn. Was that his party? Was that all his courtiers and servants and whatever else princes have? Yes, indeed it was, because then rushing through the shrubbery came all these dogs barking. That isn't my best impression of dogs. That's just what I did. And the prince is so excited, and the horse is excited. They were found at last and rescued. And they said, well, like, all his people, once they saw him, they said, whoa, you're alive. And they said, do you need any water or food? And he said, I just drank from the most beautiful fountain waterfall, so I'm actually good. But will you water my horse for me? So they did. And then they went back to the palace. But that isn't the end of the story, because the prince told his father, the king, and his mother, the queen, all about this wonderful waterfall fountain in the woods. He said it was the purest, cleanest water. It was so beautiful. But when I tried to look for it, I couldn't find it again. And that's when the king said, why, let us go back and make this into an adventure. Because kings are always looking for adventures. And, they had already hunted, so they were tired of the regular adventures like killing foxes or wild stags or whatever they do. And so he said, let us make an adventure to find the waterfall fountain. So then they posted up signs all over the kingdom and said, come join the prince in his search for the most beautiful spring and waterfall of water ever. And then people came from all over, amazing people who were really good at tracking things in the woods and making maps and, all the adventurous types of people. They came and the prince interviewed them, and then he picked 5 of the best. Why 5? That was the first number that came to my mind. So then he and his 5 amazing adventurer people headed off back into those woods. And this time they brought food and water with them, so they lasted for 2 weeks on all that they brought. And they went around and all over in the woods and were looking and looking. And not to go into too many details, but basically they found the fountain. I know, that was kind of a letdown. I didn't really set that up well. I'm sorry, guys. I guess I'm not a professional storyteller, but basically, after so much hard journeying and looking and searching when they were on their last pecan, because they packed pecans, basically they found the waterfall fountain. Oh, they were so happy. They all went swimming in it and they drank the water, and everybody said, wow, you were not overhyping this. Because that's how they talked back then when they had kings and princes and wild stags and waterfall fountains. They said, this was worth the hype. And because they were adventurer people who knew how to make maps and, do all the adventure-y, woodsy things, they made a mark so that other people could find the waterfall fountain. And then over the years, they built, the prince commissioned little walkways because so many people started going there that then the earth was getting all torn up and everything in this pathway that they made. So then he made he set up a little wooden pathway on there and built it up so that the earth wouldn't deteriorate. He made a little kind of road and then he would make little rest stops along the way because so many people were going there that then they needed little stops to stay at, and soon it became known all over the world, not just the kingdom. People would come there and see the amazing waterfall fountain. And then people started coming to just see the path to the waterfall fountain, because not only were there rest stops, but then there were little shops, and then there were little places you could camp out. And then it was amazing, the designs that they used. There were some bridges, over different ravines and stuff, suspension bridges in the woods. And it was beautiful. And there was gold on certain parts of the path. It was so kingly and princely, because, by the way, the prince had become the king, so now he used all his resources to just boost the economy, basically, to put it in poetic fairy tale terms. And then the king, he got married, and he had little princesses and princes of his own, and he was known all over the world as the king of the country with the beautiful path to the waterfall fountain. That was his official title. People wrote books about him. The books were called The Books About the King of the Country with the Beautiful Path to the Waterfall Fountain. That's what they were called. They were bestsellers. And then the king grew older. He was starting to get gray hair. He started to have less energy. Now he didn't walk the path anymore when he went and visited his beautiful waterfall fountain. He would, get carried in a little, what are those things called? That like kings and whatever sit in, and then the other people carry them with poles on their shoulders or whatever. Anyway, one of those. He would be carried in that, and he would see his waterfall fountain. But his princesses and princes, they would go adventuring on foot. And there was one princess in particular that loved the forest and loved the waterfall fountain. She loved it so much, in fact, she liked to see it without all the hubbub of all the people visiting. And so she would actually sneak off the path, and she would wander on her own little journey through the woods and enter it through the back, not the regular way that people would get to the waterfall fountain, because then there was nobody to bother her, and she would get there in the middle of the night, because that was when the least people were there, so higher chance of her being alone under the moonlight at the waterfall fountain. And she would go swimming all by herself, and she would love the water. Oh, it would spray up, making crystals, or what looked like crystals in the moonlight, little diamonds. And she would feel so restored. And then, once the sun was starting to rise, she would sneak off in the back of the woods and then travel her own special path. That was different every time, because she didn't mark it. She just knew where the waterfall fountain was, because she loved it so much. She grew up going there. And her brothers and her sisters, all the other princesses and princes, they didn't know about this, because they didn't love the waterfall fountain like she did. Well, one day, the king and queen were missing their princess, the princess who loved the waterfall fountain. They were missing her because she had gone for a long journey to see the waterfall fountain, and she had stayed out there, but nobody knew that. They knew that she liked the woods, and usually she would go for a day, but now she had been gone like 4 or 5 days. Maybe was it even close to a week? They couldn't remember. So they started searching for the princess. The king sent out an edict and said, "Go find my princess. She's lost in the woods." So then everybody on horses and on foot and on whatever else they rode, they went up and down the path to the waterfall fountain, looking and looking and looking. Where was the princess who loved the waterfall fountain? They couldn't find her. Until 2 days after that, when they had been searching for 48 hours straight, a lonely peasant, who happened to be a man, carried in the beautiful princess. She was so faint and tired because she got lost in the woods. And he said, "I found her, and I did thinkest that she was the princess." And they said, "Thank you, peasant boy, man, person. Oh, she is indeed the princess." And they gave her dates and sparkling water, whatever else, kings and queens give to their daughters to revive them after they get lost in the woods. And of course, they rewarded the peasant man and gave him some new leather shoes and, whatever else kings and queens give peasant people to reward them for returning lost daughters home. And they asked this peasant man, "Where did you find her?" And he said, "Oh, out in the middle of the woods, like kind of in the back part of the woods behind the waterfall fountain." And they thought, why was she there? And then when she woke up from being faint and tired and got all restored and everything and had eaten food and was back to her normal self, the king and queen asked her, "Why were you out in the woods? Why weren't you on the path? Why did you sneak in the back and get lost? Look, you could have died." And she said, "'Cause I like the waterfall fountain. I don't like all the people. I don't like the big old path to it. I don't like the rest stops and the music and everybody coming from all over the world. I like my waterfall fountain, just me and the water." And the king remembered the first time he had stumbled upon it. When he was weary and thirsty, he remembered how fresh and amazing it was. He remembered the surprise when there among all the beautiful greenery was indeed water coming out of the earth and flowing down at the same time. He remembered what it was like to stand in that ravine. He remembered what it was like to walk back trying to find his horse back through the bushes and losing the sound of the waterfall behind him. He remembered that experience of when he couldn't find it again. He remembered those 2 weeks of searching with all those other people looking. He remembered what it was like when they found it again. He remembered what it was like when not only he got to drink the water and swim around under the falling water and in the pools that it made, but also everybody who had been searching with him got to experience that same pleasure and joy and delight that he did. And when they said to him, "Oh, indeed, you did not lie about how beautiful this is. This was worth every minute of us searching." His daughter speaking to him of the waterfall fountain and how much she loved it reminded him of when he first loved it. And that night, with his old achy bones and his gray white hair, he left his palace. Now he didn't walk in the back roads behind the main path to the waterfall fountain because he was an old man and he didn't want to get lost again and he didn't know all the special places the princess knew. And obviously, even she was fallible to still getting lost because she did indeed get lost, as I explained earlier. But anyway, back to the king with his gray hair or white hair, whatever hair you want to imagine him with. All I know is it wasn't red, okay? He walked in the moonlight when all the people from all over the world were sleeping quietly in their rest stops and campgrounds and whatever else on the beautiful path with the gold and the wood to the waterfall fountain. He walked alone. He didn't tell his courtiers or his servants or even his little princesses and princes, nor even did he tell his beautiful queen. He just slipped out and walked the path by himself. The moon wasn't quite full, but it wasn't half a moon. It was kind of in between, and it provided enough light for him as he walked upon that path. And finally he got to the end of the beautiful path that he had helped build, and he turned and he saw the waterfall fountain. In a way, it was reminiscent of that very first time when he had discovered this beautiful water in the middle of the woods. He remembered how thirsty he was. And now as an old man, he splashed his head into the water. And he felt just like he did all those years ago as a young man. And he drank deep as an old man under the moonlight. And he looked up at the water that fell down and that sprung up at the same time. And he remembered. He remembered the reason his kingdom became great. He remembered the reason he was excited to build and to flourish. He remembered how much he loved the waterfall fountain. And he was grateful to it for everything it had provided him and his kingdom and everyone else who discovered it. But he did indeed wish that everyone could discover it the way he did and the way those first 5 adventurers did with him. similar to the way that his daughter would try to recreate that experience and sneak in the back of the woods through the dangers and stand alone like he did under the moonlight at the beautiful waterfall fountain. Soon, the sky started getting lighter. He knew that he must sneak off if he didn't want to be discovered and bombarded by all the people. So he took one last look at the waterfall fountain. Deep breath. He smelled the freshness. The birds had started singing, heralding the coming light of a new day. And he turned and walked back down the path to his palace. Many years later, because he lived to be a super old man, he was laying on his bed because he was getting weak. He was really old by this time. And he was saying goodbye to all his, sons and daughters, his princesses and princes. His wife had already passed away before him, so he had already said goodbye to her. And then the last one to say goodbye was the princess who liked to sneak to the waterfall. And he asked her, "We asked you when you were with us all years ago why you would sneak and why you would risk getting lost to go your own path to the waterfall fountain. Why did you? I want to know now, just you and I, no pretending." And she said to her dying father, "I go my own way to the water because I like to remember it's not the path there that we seek. It is the fountain itself." And in that quiet moment, after she spoke those words, she reached out and held her old father's hand. And they rested in the stillness of the moment, both connected by the shared love that they had for the beautiful waterfall fountain hidden in the woods. The end. Now, I didn't write out that story or anything, so, it was a little disjointed. So maybe someday somebody can write a really good, children's book or something about that, If anybody's ever read The Light Princess by George MacDonald, oh, I love that. Maybe they could turn this story into something like that book. Anyway, I share this story because it's an image that I got, sometime in the last year when I was thinking about how we all seek to find truth and we all come up with different conclusions. I mean, just politically, look at that. We all want a healthy country, but nobody can agree on what you do to attain that goal. But it was really around religion and spiritual truth. When I thought about that, that's when I got this picture of a fountain hidden in the woods. And I got this idea as I pictured that in my mind of how we can lose sight of the fact that it's the treasure, hidden in the woods, the water or whatever. We can lose sight that that's the thing that we want. And instead we can give so much weight and really worship to the method that we all get, that we all do to reach that truth that we love. We can get addicted to the form rather than the life within that form. And it's the life we truly love, not the form, right? Think about a home, a house. Say somebody buys a house and you have always wanted to buy a house and you buy the house and then, you spend the next 20 years or whatever living there and fixing it up and painting it and creating this beautiful home. And then say you die one day, like we all do. And then it's just a house. It's not a home anymore. So it never was the form. It never was the walls. It never was the windows or the paint or the flowers in the yard that made it special. It was you bringing your energy and creativity and love and life to the wood and the dirt and the windows and the paint that made it a beautiful home. It's the spirit of a thing that we love. And of course, it's ridiculous to then say, oh, okay, so we don't need wood and windows and paint and flowers. We can just, live in plastic tents or whatever, since it's our essence that makes things beautiful, Who needs the form if it's about the energy and the spirit or whatever? But that's ludicrous, because that's denying your very entity, right? If you love little flowers and white paint on wood and beautiful windows, then it wouldn't be your true essence and spirit expressing itself to create a form of blue tarps and plastic tents. You know what I'm saying? You can't have one without the other. Well, actually, I think you can have the form and forget the spirit of it. So I think you can have the form without the spirit. But if you truly do respect the spirit of a thing, it always takes the truest form. So that's kind of the idea behind my beautiful fountain story. Whenever you discover a truth, remember it's the truth that you love and not the way you discovered it. Or rather, it's the truth that you want to share with everybody else and not necessarily the way that you got there. Because if somebody gets there another way, can you delight with them that they discovered the truth and let go of the ego boost you need for them to have gathered the truth the same way you did? For Christians, they talk a lot about how they want people to find Jesus. And a lot of times I feel like that means more take on the religious form that they express. Go to church, read the Bible, sing the, worship Christian songs, whatever it is. Sometimes it can seem more like Christians want people to do those forms rather than actually find Jesus. And they say, well, it's these forms that have us find Jesus. And that's true. They can be helpful. But for people who aren't helped by those forms, it starts to feel a lot more like you're worshiping the form rather than the spirit. For anybody who's, had a spiritual experience or transcendent or whatever, or maybe you've discovered a truth about how to live your life financially, like, oh my goodness, when I started doing this financial thing or saving this way, it totally radically transformed how I live my life and the abundance or whatever. Just keep in mind that it's the truth that you want other people to pick up on. You don't need a bunch of clones. You're not trying to make everybody's journey look like your own. You're trying to have your journey authentically express the truths that you've discovered along the way. And that's really all I have to say about that. Also, I got bangs. I went and got my hair cut, and I said, cut some bangs. And so the wonderful hair lady cut my bangs. And I'm just laughing about that because right now I got out of the shower like an hour ago, and I currently have a little hair roller in my bangs to have them dry, where they will look good. And I was just laughing because my headphones that I wear when I record the podcast so I can hear my recording and make sure my audio sounds all right as I'm talking, those headphones were kind of falling off and they kind of ran into my roller of hair on my forehead, and I just thought that's so funny. Yeah. Well, also I don't know if you can tell, but my nose is a little plugged up. I'm fighting a little cold. Bummer. I don't know that I'm really going to sing anything for you, even though I did say I would try to do some more songs. So you know what? Here, I'm just going to play a bit of a bit of a recording of a song that I recorded, a demo. That way it'll be me singing, even though I don't have the most beautiful voice right now. All right, here it is.
I give you permission. The songs can go unsung, the novels stay imagined, the actions left undone. I give you permission. The dreams can live as dreams, the plans can die as plans, the poems stay unwritten, 'cause enough, a blank canvas is enough. Enough, a blank canvas is enough. Enough, a blank canvas is enough. Enough. So inhale and breathe out.
Wow, well, after that, do we even need a closing theme song? I guess we do, because you know what I have to say. I don't just have to give you permission. I also have to say, peace out.